Amid the endless silence, the first threads of light rise softly like the breath of time, each star, single note in the grand symphony of the universe. That gentle light once cradled young planets, igniting the very first dreams of life. But in time, every light grows weary. Stars age, contract, and fade away, leaving behind drifting clouds of cosmic ash in the dark, endless void. Where voices no longer reach, only absolute stillness remains a place that was once home to millions of suns, now held by a silence so deep you could almost hear the sound of your own existence. Perhaps this is the destiny of all things, that every beginning is already written in its final breath. Or perhaps within every ending, the universe is merely inhaling, preparing for another beginning. Let go, breathe deeply, and drift into the slow, quiet rhythm of the stars as they whisper. Before anything existed, there was silence, a perfect, absolute silence, so complete that even the notion of before did not yet exist. There was no light, no darkness, no movement, only an infinite void, soft as a black silk veil, with neither beginning nor end. If one could listen, perhaps even there, no sound would be heard. There was nothing, and yet it was the beginning of everything. Then something very small happened, so small that no one could see it, no one could hear it yet. It changed the stillness completely. Faint vibration, like the first breath in a newborn chest. It was not an explosion, but a gentle wave expanding through the darkness. That breath caused the infinite void to stretch softly, slowly, like a flower opening its petals within a dream. From that breath, energy was born, and with energy, time began to flow. Space, once a vague idea, started to take form. It stretched, swelled, and spread in every direction, as if learning how to exist. Within those waves, the first rays of light flashed, touching the deep black curtain of nothingness. That fragile light was the universe's first declaration. It had awakened. In that moment, there were no witnesses, no names, no language, only a sea of primal energy swirling like a melody without a musician. Tiny particles emerged, met, merged, separated endlessly, repeating the cycle. They had no purpose, no direction yet. From that randomness, the first order was born. The universe, like a child just opening its eyes, began to learn how to inhale and exhale. If you could stand there outside of everything, you would not see bright flashes or great explosions like in the movies. You would only sense a faint, warm breath expanding across the void. A long, deep, slow breath, and within that rhythm, everything began to find its heartbeat. Energy was no longer still. It contracted, expanded, then rippled into endless waves. Each wave was a tiny thought of the universe, a whisper in the dark. Particles of energy met, twisted together, forming the earliest seeds of matter. Perhaps from that very moment, connection became the deepest instinct of all existence. Nothing could live alone, not even the universe itself. As energy and matter began to form, time wove itself into being. No longer an unmoving silence, time became a soft current, carrying everything along. Each moment, if it could be called, that was a step in the first dance of existence. No one controlled it, no one planned it, yet every movement was perfect beyond imagination. Light grew stronger. It was no longer a few lonely rays, but a soft ocean of brightness, spreading like morning mist over a borderless world. The young universe began to see itself for the first time, through the light it created. That light touched everything, leaving behind faint warmth, a promise that no matter how far it went, no matter how dim it became, there would always be light amid darkness. In that first breath, all was fragile, like smoke fading on the surface of water. But that fragility was what made it beautiful. From nothing came everything. From silence came rhythm. From darkness came light. And in that moment, the universe was not only born, it was dreaming. Dreaming of what was yet to come. Dreaming of dust that would become stars. Of planets that would learn to spin. Of life that would someday raise its head to look back at its beginnings. Every vibration, every spark of light was a promise of a distant future it could not yet imagine. That first breath did not stop. It expanded farther and farther, as if it never wished to end. Everywhere it went, space stretched a little more light, dimmed a little more. But the life of the universe grew quietly stronger. The universe did not explode. It breathed steadily, eternally. If you close your eyes, you can feel it, the faint chill of the void, the slow murmur of energy spreading outward. It is the heartbeat of the universe pulsing within a soundless symphony. And somewhere within your own body, that same rhythm beats. Because every atom inside you, every tiny particle, once belonged to that first breath. You did not come after, you are the continuation of that breath. When that first breath faded, it left behind another silence. But this time, the silence was not empty. It carried the memory of light, the scent of energy, and the traces of the first particles. The universe had awakened, and it knew it was alive. Within that gentle expansion space, began to learn something new movement. From breath came heartbeat, from heartbeat came dance. The first waves began to drift coil and touch one another, forming immense swirling fields of energy that grew larger and larger. Stillness gave way to motion, and so the universe, the newborn child, began to stir. It quivered softly, stretched once more, and the first movement of space began. After the first breath, the universe was no longer still. It began to expand slowly, silently, but irresistibly. From an unimaginable point space, unfolded like a lake, disturbed by a single pebble dropped at its center. Ripples spread outward, flowing endlessly, with no shore to reach. Space did not explode. It blossomed as if it too were learning how to breathe. At first, there was no up or down. Every direction was the same, every motion born from the same origin. The first waves of energy spread outward, as light as threads of smoke in water. They curled, touched, sometimes collided, sometimes merged, painting faint specks of glow across a shapeless sea of darkness. The universe was like a soft fabric, quivering beneath an unseen hand, something nameless, yet deeply alive. Each pulse of that vibration was the first heartbeat of space. As it spread, it carried energy, weaving tiny particles into long-flowing waves. It was the universe's first symphony, wordless without a musician, yet complete. Within every wave was the harmony of chaos and order, as though the universe from the moment of its birth already possessed an instinct to create balance within disorder. Time once, a faint current began to find rhythm. It slowed, then quickened, then repeated, like the steady breath of a growing being. Each passing moment was no longer merely before or after, but a graceful dance of change. From nothingness, there now existed before and after beginning's motion and the first pulse of life. As the waves of energy continued to drift, the universe grew softer, more fluid, more vast. Light no longer stood still. It stretched with space, thinning out, like mist dissolving above an endless sea. The farther it spread, the fainter it became, yet it never vanished. It only softened quietly, making room for what was about to be born. Denser regions of energy began to contract while thinner regions expanded further. These tiny fluctuations would later become the first seeds of cosmic structure, the birthplaces of future galaxies, stars, and planets. But in that moment, they were only pale shadows, still trying to understand themselves. Space now resembled an infinite ocean. Within it, waves of energy rose, broke, and faded again. Every movement was connected by invisible threads. If one could see it, there would be trillions upon trillions of tiny shimmering points drifting together, not colliding, simply coexisting in silence. Occasionally, within that sea of light, small eddies began to form, slowly, faintly, but with patience. They swirled around one another, entwining like dancers in a heavy mist. What began as the play of energy would over time become the foundation of all matter in the cosmos. Time stretched on like a river without a mouth. Each expansion and contraction made the universe a little more mature. Everything drifted outward, cooler, calmer. Yet hidden beneath that serenity was an immense power waiting to awaken, like a living being growing quietly in its sleep. The universe was still dreaming, a dream filled with light and motion. If we could listen, then we would hear a soft murmur, not an explosion, but the faint whisper of energy flowing through newborn space, a steady rhythm like the breath of someone deeply asleep. And within that rhythm, space became supple, as water cradling everything within its vastness. Space was no longer just a container. It had become the universe's very being, an invisible ocean where everything floated, touched, and blended. There were no borders, no limits, every point connected to all others, like drops merging into the sea. And thus, the universe was not merely expanding, it was learning how to live. As light and energy began to find balance, the universe started to take on the form of a true entity. Expansion was no longer random. It had rhythm, it had cycles. Each wave was a heartbeat, each vibration a breath. From what was once nothing, space became the vast chest of life itself, a place where all that would come would be born, held, and remembered through time. Space had learned to move. It understood that to exist, it must forever stretch and contract again and again. Just as the ocean cannot still its waves, nor the wind stop its flow motion, became not consequence, but essence. And within that movement, new wonders began to arise. Energy no longer drifted aimlessly. It began to connect, to create its own patterns, forming regions where invisible forces emerged. Those forces had no names yet, but they were everywhere, holding particles, close, drawing them together, teaching space how to embrace. That was when, amid the vast ocean of expanding energy, the universe opened its eyes for the second time. It felt something stirring within itself, a deeper, stronger vibration, steady and sure. A whisper moved through everything unseen, but undeniable. The time had come for the universe's invisible hands to appear. When space had learned how to move, the universe was no longer just a vast sea of energy. Within the waves that spread outward, there were smaller, subtler vibrations, like invisible threads beginning to weave together. It was at this moment that the first hands of the universe were born. They had no shape, no color, no sound, yet they were the ones that would sculpt everything that would ever exist. People call them the four souls of the universe, four breaths that are always present, though unseen: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong force, and the weak force. They are not divine beings, but deep heartbeats within the fabric of space itself. Each force is a different way the universe touches itself to understand, to hold, and to connect. The first force, the quietest and most patient, is gravity. It is not loud or hurried, yet it is everywhere. It is the long breath of the universe embracing everything, pulling tiny particles closer together, teaching them what it means to stay. From the ocean of chaos, it was gravity that gathered the scattered energy into cluster strands and the first luminous swirls. Without gravity, the universe would be nothing but drifting wind, forever wandering, never finding itself again. Then came the electromagnetic force lighter, more agile, a radiant dance of light. It is the song of charged particles, the melody that light hums each time it moves. If gravity is the gentle embrace that keeps the universe still, electromagnetism is the breath that makes it tremble, shimmer, and sing. Every beam of light, every bolt of lightning, every photon is a note in that invisible symphony. And because of it, the universe began to have color, flavor, and texture, things we could see, touch, and feel. Deeper still in the tiny realm of particles, there is the strong force, the hand of binding. It refuses to let what has met drift apart. It holds the minute particles within the heart of the atom, linking them to create matter. Thanks to it, particles have form and the world has a body. Without the strong force, nothing could stay together long enough to become something. Everything would dissolve again into nameless, formless, meaningless energy. And finally, soft as breath, but vital as a heartbeat, is the weak force. It allows everything to change. Through it, particles can transform, be born, die, and be reborn in other forms. It is this force that taught the universe its most important lesson: nothing lasts forever, yet nothing truly disappears. The weak force is the whisper reminding us that even in decay, there is the promise of renewal. These four forces, the four invisible souls, do not fight or compete. They coexist like four rivers flowing toward one vast ocean. Wherever one grows stronger, the others quiet down, preserving balance. In this harmony, the universe found its perfect rhythm, contracting and expanding, glowing and fading, dissolving and renewing. Thanks to these unseen hands, the early chaos began to take on order. From aimless particles emerged the first structures, clusters, bands, and spirals that would one day become the stars. It all began with tiny, tender, persistent touches. Each force in its own way caressed space, smoothing its edges, planting the first seeds of life to come. If you listen closely, you can almost imagine their sounds: gravity deep and resonant, like an echo within a mountain; electromagnetism shimmering like the pluck of a string; the strong force dense and pulsing like a heartbeat; and the weak force barely audible, a sigh between moments of change. Together, they form the eternal background music of the cosmos. As these forces intertwined, the universe began to hold a subtle order, one that needed no master to arrange it. Tiny particles found one another linked and became matter. From that matter, light began to reflect, space began to take shape, and time began to find meaning. The four unseen hands continued their endless work, keeping everything both firm and gentle stable, yet ever in motion. At this moment, the universe was no longer a nameless, chaotic sea. It had rhythm, breath, and harmony. And within that serene pulse, one could feel that everything was being cradled by a force gentler than we could ever imagine. As the invisible hands went on weaving the fabric of space, one of them began to stand out, not because it was the strongest, but because it was the foundation of all the rest. Silent and enduring, it never vanished no matter where in the universe it reached. It was the thread keeping the stars from drifting away, the call that made planets dance around their suns. It was gravity, the long, slow, and deep breath of the universe. Among the four souls of the universe, there is one force that almost always stands in the background. It is not as radiant as light, not as powerful as the nuclear forces, not as swift as electromagnetism. It simply exists, silent, humble, yet persistent like the heartbeat of space that never ceases. That force is gravity, the quietest, gentlest, yet deepest soul in all the cosmos. Gravity is so weak that when you lift a feather from a table, your hand is already stronger than it, and yet without it, no star could shine, no planet could spin, and no flower could take root in the soil. Its weakness is in truth the foundation of all connection. Gravity does not need to conquer. It understands that with patience, everything will eventually return to it. It begins with the smallest of particles. When the universe had no form, the first energy particles, smaller than dust, began to sense each other's faint, distant pull. One drifted closer, then another followed. Gradually, those lonely particles found one another, gathered, thickened, and began to glow. And thus, the first drops of matter were born. Gravity said nothing, issued no command. It simply smiled quietly in the stillness, letting everything find its way home. If we could see gravity, perhaps it would look like an invisible hand, open and gentle, keeping everything from drifting too far away. It does not force, it does not grip tightly, it merely holds just enough, like a mother softly holding the hand of her child, taking its first steps. Within that hand, both the smallest particles and the largest stars are embraced together, safe within the shared rhythm of the universe. As time passed, gravity began to reveal its true power, not through intensity, but endurance. It gathered luminous dust into clouds of gas, then pressed them closer, tighter, until friction turned into fire. And when that fire ignited, the first star was born. From that moment, light began to spread, and darkness learned how to smile. Every star in the heavens was born from gravity's patience. It collected each grain of dust, each stray spark of energy, molded them into spheres, and held their inner fire steady. Every planet that circles a star is part of a dance choreographed by gravity, not through control, but through rhythm. It is a dance that never ends, only slowing, softening, and continuing again. Gravity makes no distinctions. It treats everything the same: grains of sand, drops of water, stars, galaxies. All hear the same deep whisper from it: stay, and somehow they all obey. Even stars separated by billions of light years remain connected by a fragile, invisible thread, the thread of gravity. Because of it, Galaxies form planets, hold their paths, and the universe takes shape. Everything seems to drift, yet in truth, all are circling one another in a vast cosmic symphony. Gravity is the conductor who never appears. It need only to raise its hand, and the music begins. And still, there is something profoundly human in the way gravity works. It does not fight or demand. It simply waits. It waits for billions of years for two particles to meet, for two stars to collide again, for one galaxy to embrace another in a slow spiral. It teaches the universe a simple, profound lesson. True strength lies not in force, but in patience. If one could listen, one would hear its sound. Not explosions, not thunder, but the deep breathing of the universe itself. Every time a star collapses, gravity pulls it inward, not to destroy, but to hold. In that collapse, the light flares one last time, brighter than ever, a tender farewell before returning to the dark. When stars fade, gravity does not abandon them. It continues to cradle the ashes, gathering and spinning them until within that dust, a new star is born. The circle never ends. So the universe continues to breathe slow, long, steady, within the arms of gravity. We too are not beyond its embrace. Every step we take, every breath we draw, is a quiet conversation with gravity. It keeps us grounded, holds the oceans in place, and keeps the atmosphere from drifting away. It embraces everything, even us, within the same gentle rhythm. We exist because of it, yet never feel imprisoned. Instead, we are held. And perhaps that is the greatest miracle. Of all, a force so invisible, so easily forgotten, is the very thread that binds everything in the cosmos into one whole. Within its softness lies the greatest strength. Within its gentle embrace lies both the power to create and the grace to end all things. As the universe continues to expand, gravity remains patient, enduring like the eternal heartbeat of existence itself. It needs no witness, no praise. It only continues to keep everything together, just as it has done since the very first breath. And while gravity holds the masses in its arms, somewhere in the darkness, another rhythm begins to rise. Something equally invisible, equally delicate, but far more radiant. It is what turns silence into sound, darkness into light. If gravity is the heart, then what comes next is the voice of the universe. After gravity gently gathered the first grains of dust and kept the universe from dissolving, another miracle took place. Deep within that darkness, amid the swirling streams of energy, faint song began to rise. It was not a sound the human ear could ever hear, but the melody of energy itself, what we would one day call, by a familiar name, light. Light is the voice of the universe, the way energy tells its own story. When tiny particles began to vibrate, they created waves, not of water or wind, but electromagnetic waves. And from those first trembling ripples, the universe began to glow. Everywhere that had once been darkness now flickered with tiny sparks, like countless fireflies in a forest that had never known dawn. Those first lights were not blazing like suns, nor fierce like flames. They were gentle dim, like breaths escaping from a dream. But however faint light possessed one extraordinary truth: it always moves, and it never stops. From the place of its birth, it travels endlessly, crossing the vast void, carrying with it the memory of where it came from. Every beam of light is a message, a whisper, a fragment of remembrance. If one could look through time, One would see within every ray of light the entire history of the universe, small moments, murmurs from stars that lived and died billions of years ago. Light never forgets. It simply continues on slowly and silently, bearing all that it has touched. In the endless, dark light is the oldest memory, the cosmic diary written in the language of energy itself. Far away where the first stars had just formed, gravity still held them close, keeping their fires steady. And light like breath escaping from the chest of stars began to fill the vastness. For the first time, darkness was no longer absolute. For the first time, the universe had a boundary between shadow and shine. And in that very moment, beauty was born. Light does not merely illuminate, it paints. Each ray, as it passed through dust or gas, bent and shifted, creating spectral ribbons that would one day be called color. But back then, there were no eyes to see. Light was playing with itself, dancing across the void, rejoicing simply because it could finally sing. If gravity is the hand that holds everything together, then light is the breath that lets everything hum. It needs no touch, no cage. It only needs to move freely, softly through everything, every time, every memory. And through its journey, it never forgets its beginning. It carries with it the trace of the stars that birthed it, of explosions of blooming clouds of dust. Some rays of light left their stars billions of years ago, and only now reach our eyes. When we gaze up at the night sky, we are not looking into the present, but into the past, a past still in motion. Every star we see may already have faded, but its light is still on its way. Light is the immortal soul of the stars. It not only brightens space, but awakens time itself. For only with light can there be before and after, near and far. Light teaches the universe that some places are closer, others farther. That distance can be felt. Through light, the universe gained its depth. In the silence of the void, light hums an endless song. It sings to the smallest particles, telling them they are not alone. It sings to newborn galaxies, to darkness itself, reminding it that no light can exist without something to shine upon. In this song, the universe became softer, warmer, and more elusive. Yet light is also fragile. It can be swallowed, bent, erased, and still it does not fear. It only continues on, because that is its nature, to move, to spread, to tell stories of what it has seen. Every time light encounters matter, it leaves behind a mark, a whisper, a memory. We, the small beings, living in the bright corner of a little planet, are the result of that journey. The light we see today traveled through the cold void for millions of years, just to reach us, to touch our skin, our eyes, our souls. It arrives not to speak, but to remind us I have been everywhere, and now I am here with you. Perhaps somewhere in a hidden corner of the universe, light is still singing slowly, distantly, but never stopping. And when we close our eyes and listen deeply, we may hear that song, a song without words, without rhythm, only the feeling of warmth threading through every empty space within us. As light spread across everything, the universe began to change. The interplay between energy matter and waves of light created a magnificent stage where small things learned to connect. Tiny particles met, embraced and formed clusters, denser, stronger, and amid all that motion, another hand was at work, the most loyal and powerful hand in all of existence, That was the strong force, the hand that knows how to love the hand, that binds everything together into form. Amid the grand symphony of light resonating through space, something quieter was unfolding, things so small they could not be seen yet, so essential that nothing could exist without them. Deep within the calmest heart of the universe, among the trembling waves of energy, tiny particles, known as quarks, began to find one another. They did not meet by calling out, nor by collision. They simply sensed each other, a pull so near, so strong, almost absolute. As two quarks drew close, they stopped at a perfect distance, neither nearer nor farther, as though some silent promise had been written for them since the beginning of time. And so, from solitary particles, the first pairs were born. The force that bound them together is called the strong force, the most steadfast hand of the universe. It is not like gravity, gentle and distant, nor like electromagnetism, radiant and swift. The strong force is enduring, loyal, and relentless. It grips tightly, refusing to let go, holding particles together, no matter how far they might try to drift. It is this force that fused quarks into protons and neutrons, the first building blocks of matter. If gravity is the love the universe gives to all things, then the strong force is the love between two tiny souls, reserved only for each other. No one can see it, no one can hear it, but because of it, everything began to take shape. Matter, the thing we can touch, see, and stand upon, was born from that invisible embrace. In the world of particles, there is no loneliness. Every quark finds a companion, a twin, to share its existence with. When torn apart, they resist pulling each other back, refusing to separate. For when apart, they are no longer themselves. They exist because they belong together like two musical notes that become melody only when they unite. From these pairs came groups of three, the first protons and neutrons. They are the tiny beating hearts of the material world, where energy becomes form, where the invisible becomes tangible, and within every proton, the strong force continues its work, a red thread weaving through binding each smallest piece, together with a love that never fades. The universe began to gain a body. Everything was no longer just waves or light, but particles with mass position and the power to touch one another. The strong force was like a patient sculptor, shaping every detail, joining fragments together to create the first statue of existence. It did not paint the colors, but it built the framework for everything that would one day shine. If one could have seen it, the world then would appear as a vast ocean, glittering with specks of light, each speck a cluster of particles locked in the arms of the strong force. Those arms were anything but delicate. They could hold tighter than any force in the universe. Nothing could break those bonds except the very energy that created them. And because of this unbreakable union, the universe did not dissolve. When particles found each other, they created stability, a calm within chaos. It was as if, within the cosmic symphony, one note lingered longer, resonating deeper, making all other sounds pause in reverence. That was the first moment true existence took form. From there, atoms began to emerge. Protons and neutrons joined hands more tightly, still forming the first nuclei, the hearts of elements. Within the embrace of the strong force, matter began to recognize itself, learning how to stand firm amid the shifting sea of energy. It could be called a form of love, a love without words, without vows, simply holding on in silence. The tiny particles did not know what they were doing, yet their closeness gave the universe shape. Like two souls finding each other in a crowd, they needed no reason, only the sense that together they were whole. And perhaps if we think deeply, all great things begin with that simple act connection. Everything exists because of some bond, however invisible. From quarks forming protons, to planets circling stars, to humans holding hands, all are part of an endless chain of connection. Born from the same truth, nothing exists alone. The strong force taught the universe its first lesson in closeness, that nothing is truly solitary, that power lies in unity, and within that bond, the first solid forms were born, preparing for the next step, the beginning of change. For in the universe, nothing stays still forever. No matter how tightly things hold, change must come not to break, but to open the path forward, the path of evolution, of rebirth, of eternal cycles. And so, while the strong force held the tiny particles close, within its embrace somewhere else, another breath began to awaken, softer, more fragile, yet destined to make everything transform, evolve, and come alive. That was the weak force, the gentle hand that touches and reshapes, teaching every particle how to change, as if the universe itself had begun to dream. In the quiet heart of the newborn universe, after the first bonds had been woven and matter had found its fragile form, something subtle began to stir. For a while, everything had been still, particles held tightly together by love and gravity, by the strength that refused to let go. Yet beneath that calm, there was a whisper, a longing for change. Nothing in the universe is ever meant to stay the same forever. And so, another force awoke, gentler than the strong force, lighter than the pull of gravity. It did not hold or bind, it simply touched, a small, almost invisible caress that allowed things to shift, to become something new. This was the weak force, the quiet breath of transformation. Unlike the other forces, it did not shout its presence. It moved softly, like wind passing over still water, unseen but deeply felt. Its gift was not in strength, but in permission, permission to change, to decay, to evolve. It whispered to the particles, "You don't have to stay as you are." And with that whisper, the universe began to change once more. Inside the tiny hearts of atoms, protons and neutrons began to trade places, to shed parts of themselves to become something different. From these small acts of transformation, new elements were born. Hydrogen became helium. Helium gave birth to heavier atoms. And from the dance of decay came creation itself. The weak force turned endings into beginnings, loss into renewal. If the strong force was love that held things together, the weak force was compassion that allowed them to grow apart, not in destruction, but in evolution. It was the understanding that to move forward, some things must first let go of their old selves. The universe learned to breathe differently then. With every transformation, it exhaled energy and inhaled possibility. It began to shimmer with diversity, not just light, but color, not just atoms, but differences. No longer still, no longer simple. The cosmos was discovering the beauty of becoming. You can almost imagine it, particles drifting in the dark, each pulsing softly as they transform, some releasing light, some taking it in, all part of a slow, graceful waltz of change. There was no chaos in this dance, only rhythm. Each transformation was a heartbeat, each decay a sigh, each birth a promise whispered into the deep. Through these quiet shifts, the universe began to craft a richer language: hydrogen and helium. The first two words soon turned into sentences of carbon, oxygen, nitrogen. These would one day become the alphabet of life, but for now, they were still dreams drifting through a sea of light, and somewhere in the darkness between the stars, yet to be born, the universe began to understand its own nature. Change was not an interruption, it was the pulse that kept everything alive. Every transformation, no matter how small, was a way of remembering that existence itself is movement, never fixed, never finished. The weak force, so often overlooked, was the artist behind this constant renewal. It painted with time instead of color, shaping not through power, but through patience. It was the tender reminder that even the smallest shift can create something entirely new. Without it, the stars would never have formed. Without it, matter would never have learned to evolve. Without it, there would be no life, no story, no song. Sometimes we think of strength as the ability to stay unchanged, to remain whole, unshaken. But the universe teaches otherwise. True strength, it whispers, lies in the courage to transform. The weak force, though faint and invisible, carries that lesson in every particle it touches. As eons passed, the universe began to shimmer with the fruits of this quiet power. The old gave way to the new, and the cosmos unfolded into layers of complexity, each built on the transformations before it. The universe was no longer just expanding, it was evolving. And just like that, from the smallest flicker of change, came the seeds of everything that would ever be. The galaxies that would spin the stars, that would shine the worlds, that would breathe, all born from that gentle touch. The weak force was not only the hand of decay, but also the midwife of creation. If you close your eyes, you might still feel it, the soft hum of change running through your own body. Every breath you take, every cell that renews itself, every heartbeat that carries life forward, all of it is the same story told over and over again. To exist is to change. The universe never looked back. With each transformation, it grew more intricate, more alive. The once empty space now shimmered with particles and light, each whispering the same truth: nothing lasts forever. And that is the beauty of it. And from this understanding, the universe began to dream again, form of shape of matter that could hold its own. Energy longed to rest, to gather, to take on the outlines of something more. From the quiet of transformation came a new desire, not just to change, but to become. And so, in the soft afterglow of those first transformations, the universe began to imagine shapes, threads of matter weaving into clouds, clouds folding into stars. It was the beginning of form, the birth of structure, the moment when energy started to dream of touch. There came a time, long after the first transformations, when the universe began to slow its breath. The chaos of energy, wild, free, endlessly moving, started to soften. The endless dance of particles and light found a quieter rhythm, a gentler pulse. And in that stillness, something miraculous began to happen. Energy started to dream of becoming something it could touch. It was not a sudden change, but a gradual, patient gathering. The waves of energy that once roamed aimlessly began to curl inward, folding upon themselves. condensing, becoming heavy. From pure light and motion came density, from freedom came form. Energy, tired of drifting, longed to rest. And in that longing, matter was born. Tiny particles emerged like drops of dew, forming in the cold morning air. They met, collided, embraced, and slowly began to stay. These were the first atoms, the universe's first attempt to hold itself together. They were fragile, trembling, uncertain, yet in their uncertainty lay the seed of everything that would ever exist. Hydrogen came first, simple and pure. One proton, one electron, a single note in the vast song of creation. Then helium, soft and stable, joined in. Each new element was a verse, a tone, a breath in the growing melody of existence. For the first time, the universe had structure, faint and flickering, but real. From the endless chaos, the dreaming particles began to find balance. Some clustered together, drawn by invisible forces. Others drifted apart, creating the vastness between. Slowly, the universe learned how to build, how to hold, how to stay. It was as if, after eons of dreaming, it had finally begun to shape its own body. You could almost imagine it, a great ocean of atoms, floating through the darkness, each one humming softly, waiting for a touch, a connection, a purpose. They were the dust and heartbeat of future stars. Though none of them knew it yet, every one of them carried a tiny memory of light, a whisper of the energy they once were. And as they drifted and met, something changed in the tone of the cosmos. The universe, once only sound and movement, began to feel. It had density, now texture, a kind of softness within its vastness. The first hints of form rippled through space, and the once intangible fabric of existence began to take on substance. Perhaps this was the universe's first act of self-discovery, to touch itself, to know its own boundaries. Matter was not just structure, it was memory condensed and quiet. Every atom was a fragment of light, slowed down enough to rest. Every connection between them was an act of trust, a promise to stay together. From these promises came clouds, enormous delicate swirls of hydrogen and helium. They floated like cosmic breaths, glowing faintly in the dark. Within them, gravity whispered again, pulling threads of matter closer, tighter, until the warmth began to rise. These clouds, these dreams would one day ignite, becoming stars. But for now, they simply existed, swaying gently in the dark sea of space. In this era, there was peace. The violence of creation had faded. What remained was quiet persistence. The universe was building slowly, tenderly, as if sculpting itself from memory. And in that process, it began to carry a body not of flesh, but of matter, of dust, of atoms, learning to cling and sing together. Everywhere you looked, there was stillness filled with potential. Space was no longer empty. It was alive with waiting, waiting for light to return, waiting for warmth to gather, waiting for form to find its heart. Matter, once the echo of pure energy, now became the cradle of creation. It was the bedrock of stars, the dust of planets, the substance of life yet to come. And though none of this had yet taken shape, the blueprint was already written within every atom to connect, to build, to shine again. The universe, in its quiet maturity, seemed to sigh a slow, tender exhale. For the first time, it could feel its own weight. The soft hum of atoms filled the darkness, and through that hum, the cosmos began to sing a new kind of song, not of light, but of form. From that song, from that dream of structure, the stage was set for the next Act 1, where the stars would awaken, where fire would return and where creation would burn once more with passion. The atoms that had found peace would soon be drawn together again, this time not by chance, but by purpose. In their embrace, the first fires of the cosmos would ignite, flooding the dark with color and sound. The universe, having built its body, was ready to find its heart. Out of the quiet sea of matter, something began to stir once more. The hydrogen clouds that had floated gently for ages started to gather, pulled by invisible hands, the same patient gravity that had guided the universe from its first breath. Slowly, softly, the clouds grew heavier, their hearts warming as they were pressed tighter and tighter together. And then, in the silence of the cosmic dawn, the universe opened its eyes again, for the very first stars had begun to shine. It was not a single spark, but millions small fires blooming across the endless dark. They did not roar or explode all at once. They shimmered into being, like candles being lit in a cathedral too vast for walls. Every corner of the cosmos that had once been cold now flickered with light. The night was still there, but it was no longer empty. The universe had found its rhythm. Each star was a note, each flare a melody. Together, they formed a symphony so grand it could only be heard by the silence itself. Hydrogen fused into helium, light poured out like breath, and the universe began to hum with life. The stars were not just burning, they were singing. Their voices were made of color, of warmth, of time itself. In those young fires, the forces of the universe worked as one. Gravity held them close. The strong force bound their hearts. The weak force whispered transformation, and light carried their song outward. It was harmony, perfect, radiant harmony. The universe, once a vast ocean of waiting, was now a glowing sea of sound. If you could have floated there in that dawn of stars, you would have seen them pulsing like music made visible. Each beat of light carried stories of creation, of destruction, of rebirth. Some stars burned quickly, fiercely spilling their lives in moments that lasted only millions of years. Others glowed softly, steadily, singing slow songs that would echo across eons. Every star was both a beginning and an ending. They lived, they shone, and when their fires dimmed, they gave themselves back to the universe, their ashes becoming the dust from which new stars would rise. Nothing was ever lost. Every ending became the first note of another song, and so the cosmos played on a never-ending melody of creation and return. The light from those first stars stretched far beyond their birthplaces. It wove through space like golden threads, illuminating clouds of dust and gas, guiding new stars into being. Everywhere, the universe shimmered, a great glowing tapestry woven from light and time. The once dark expanse now glittered like a field of diamonds scattered across a velvet sea. And in the midst of it all, there was movement, a gentle swaying, a rotation, so slow it could only be felt across ages. The stars were not still. They circled one another, drawn together into great clusters, into families. Like instruments in an orchestra, finding their place, they began to organize, to align, to build the first patterns of cosmic music. The universe was alive with resonance. You could almost hear it, the deep, steady hum of gravity, the high shimmer of light, the soft undertone of time moving forward. It was not chaos anymore. It was rhythm. Every star knew its part. Every glimmer was a voice in the great chorus of existence. As more and more stars were born, the universe grew louder, brighter, fuller. Some stars collided and merged, bursting into grand, brief crescendos of light. Others faded quietly, leaving behind glowing embers, reminders that even silence has a sound. The sky became a symphony of birth and death, of rise and fall, of everything that ever was singing together in the same key. And from that vast harmony, new elements were born: carbon, oxygen, iron. The stars, in their blazing hearts, were crafting the ingredients for worlds yet to come, for oceans, for trees, for breath. Their music was shaping the future, line by line, note by note. When we look up today, what we see are not just points of light, but echoes, the lingering chords of stars, long gone, still traveling, still singing. Their light crosses billions of years, just to brush against our eyes. And for that brief moment, when it reaches us, we are reminded that we too are part of the same song. Every heartbeat inside us carries the rhythm of that ancient symphony. The calcium in our bones, the iron in our blood, the carbon that forms our very being, all were born in the hearts of stars that sang their final notes long ago. We are not separate from the music of the cosmos. We are made of it, and so the symphony continues, endless, patient, beautiful. Stars are born, stars die, and the universe keeps singing softly, eternally. Yet even in its brilliance, something deeper was forming. The stars were not alone. They began to drift together, to swirl, to gather into shapes larger and grander than any one of them could be. Gravity, ever the silent conductor, began to draw them into vast spirals and clusters, teaching them a new kind of dance, one that would shape the architecture of the universe itself. The light dimmed in the farthest corners, but in the center, the rhythm grew stronger. Stars turned and curved and flowed into motion, forming the first galaxies, vast rotating choirs of light. The universe was ready for its next movement, its next great act of beauty. The stars had found their voices. Their light filled the once dark ocean of the cosmos, shimmering across the endless night, like 1,000 soft heartbeats pulsing in unison. But even light could not stay still forever. In the silence between the stars, another rhythm began to rise, a slower, deeper one, born not of flame, but of movement. Gravity, the patient conductor of the universe, reached out once again. It gathered clusters of stars, pulling them together, thread by thread, into great families. At first they were scattered, drifting islands of light suspended in a sea of space. But slowly they began to draw closer, curving toward one another, learning the art of motion. The universe had begun to spin. It started softly, like the swirl of mist over calm water. The clusters turned gravity, tightening its embrace, pulling the stars into spirals that widened and deepened with every rotation. These spirals were not rushed. They moved with the grace of eternity, each turn taking millions of years, yet never losing their rhythm. The first galaxies were born from this dance, vast collections of light and dust of time and memory, turning endlessly around their invisible centers. They were not static paintings, but living movements, vast cosmic whirlpools, where billions of stars traced the same circular song. If the universe were an ocean, galaxies were its waves, always moving, always flowing, never the same twice. From afar, they looked like glowing storms, suspended in time, each one a swirl of gold and blue and silver. Their arms reached out across space, like dancers in slow motion, spinning around hearts made of darkness, supermassive black holes, silent and unyielding, yet full of gravity's gentle pull. Around these unseen centers, everything moved, everything belonged. Motion became meaning. The spin of a galaxy was not chaos, but choreography, the balance between holding on and letting go. Gravity pulled inward, while momentum pushed outward, and between them, a fragile perfection emerged. It was in this balance that the universe learned its most elegant truth, that motion can be harmony. Every galaxy spun to its own rhythm. Some turned fast and tight, their arms coiled close like secret whispers. Others sprawled wide and loosed their stars, drifting far into the dark, slow, and serene. Yet together, they formed a grand cosmic ballet, millions of spirals, ellipses, and clusters, each moving to a rhythm both shared and unique. The cosmos had found its pulse. In this motion, beauty took on a new form. The spiral, that gentle curve, infinite yet contained, became the signature of a mature universe. It appeared everywhere, in the swirl of galaxies, in the twist of hurricanes, in the shells of sea snails that would one day crawl upon planets yet unborn. The spiral was not just a shape, it was a language, a reminder that all things, no matter how vast or small, move in the same rhythm. The galaxies danced not in silence, but in resonance. When they drifted too close, they brushed against each other, their stars mingling like notes blending in harmony. Some collided, merging into new shapes. Others passed by, gently tugging one another's arms before parting ways again. Even destruction in this dance became creation. Through the slow turning of galaxies, the universe became alive in a new way. Its once chaotic energy had settled into order, into structure and rhythm. The galaxies spun, time flowed, light circled endlessly, and space itself seemed to hum. The cosmos was no longer just expanding, it was breathing. If you could drift among those galaxies, you might feel that breath, the pull and release of gravity, the whisper of motion beneath the silence. Every star, every planet, every dust grain moved as part of something larger. Nothing was truly still. Everything belonged to the dance. And somewhere in one quiet corner of this grand performance, a small spiral galaxy began to form. It was not the biggest nor the brightest. Its stars were modest, its arms delicate, yet it shimmered with a kind of quiet promise. It would come to hold billions of suns, countless worlds, and one day far in the future, a tiny blue planet that would learn to look up and wonder where it came from. This was the Milky Way, our home, born from the same cosmic dance that spun the universe into shape. In its arms, stars moved like notes in a melody, circling around a dark center no one could see. Every turn of the galaxy carried the memories of all that came before light motion creation. The Milky Way spun slow and steady, a spiral of soft light in a sea of endless dark. Around it, other galaxies shimmered, each playing their own part in the great celestial orchestra. The universe had reached a kind of peace, vast, radiant, full of motion, yet strangely still. And from that stillness, a new question began to rise, a whisper from the heart of the Milky Way itself. What stories would unfold inside its shining arms? What quiet miracles would awaken the world yet to form within its embrace? The stars continued to turn, and in one of those gentle spirals, something extraordinary was about to begin. Among the countless spirals, turning through the quiet dark, one galaxy began to hum, a little softer than the rest. It was not the largest nor the brightest, But there was something tender in its motion, a steady rhythm that felt almost familiar, its arms stretched wide, glowing faintly with the light of billions of stars. It turned slowly, gracefully around a heart that could not be seen. This was the Milky Way, our home in the vast ocean of the cosmos. At its center lay an invisible force, a dark heart made not of light, but of gravity. It did not shine, yet everything revolved around it. Hundreds of billions of stars each, with their own stories, their own paths, their own whispers of creation, circled this hidden core, like dancers moving to the same silent song. From above, the Milky Way shimmered like a silver river winding through eternity, its arms spiraling out in a perfect endless curve. Every star in this galaxy sang its own quiet melody, and together they formed a harmony so vast that it could never truly be heard. The notes were made not of sound, but of light, each flicker, each pulse a rhythm older than time itself. The Milky Way was not just a place, it was a song written across the sky in billions of shining letters. If you could drift through it, you would see how alive it truly is. Great clouds of gas, soft pink and glowing, drift between the stars, birthing new suns in their misty embrace. Older stars, tired and fading, shed their final light into the dark, giving back the dust that would one day form new worlds. It is a cycle of quiet generosity, a never-ending breath between creation and return. And somewhere within one of those spiral arms, a small yellow star began to glow. Around it, bits of rock and dust began to gather, swirling slowly into orbits of their own. They were the tiniest of fragments in the grand galaxy. But something beautiful was beginning to take shape. Though the Milky Way had seen countless stars before, this one would carry a very special song, one that would echo far beyond its size. From our small corner of this galaxy, when we look up at the night sky, we see the Milky Way as a pale ribbon of light stretching from horizon to horizon. But that gentle band is not just a sight, it is our lineage. Every point of light is a sun, every shimmer, a world, every spark, a reminder that we belong to something vast and breathing. The galaxy hums softly, and within that hum we exist not separate, but intertwined. There is a quiet humility in that thought. We, the inhabitants of a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, are no more than dust carried on the edge of a spiral arm. And yet, that dust can dream. It can look up, see the same glow that gave it birth, and ask questions about its own beginnings. The Milky Way does not answer in words. It responds in light. Each night it spills a little of its brilliance across our sky, as if to remind us you are part of me. Our galaxy is ancient, nearly as old as time itself. It has seen generations of stars born and lost, clusters collide and merge. Civilizations rise and fade. Through it all, it has continued to turn patient and unhurried, like a great heart beating in slow motion. Its spiral arms stretch outward, as if embracing everything they touch, light, shadow, silence, and us. Even the emptiness between its stars is full of quiet music. Invisible waves of gravity and radiation pass through space, like low notes on an endless scale. We cannot hear them, but they are always there, resonating through us, through the earth, through every atom in our bone. For those atoms were once part of this galaxy's earlier songs. It's a strange and comforting thought that the calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the oxygen we breathe, all were forged in the fires of long-dead stars that once danced within this spiral. Their ashes became our bodies. Their light became our warmth. We are not just living in the Milky Way. We are made of it. And though our existence is fleeting compared to its vastness, that doesn't make us less. The galaxy's song needs every note, even the quietest ones. The great stars roar, the small ones hum, and together they create the harmony that fills space. We too are part of that harmony, a single soft note in the great symphony of the cosmos. If you close your eyes and breathe, you might almost feel it, the slow rotation of the galaxy, the pull of its gravity beneath your feet, the faint hum of 100 billion suns circling an unseen heart. It is steady, calm, and eternal. The Milky Way is always singing, even when we are too busy to listen. And so, while we orbit our small sun, drifting through this spiral of stars, the galaxy carries us gently, patiently through the universe. It holds us without holding tight, letting us float, letting us dream. In its arms, everything has a place. Even the smallest dust grain, even the faintest spark of life belongs. Because that is the secret the Milky Way keeps, that no matter how small we feel, we are never apart from the great unfolding of the cosmos. We are threads in its fabric, voices in its song, echoes in its endless light. The galaxy turns on soft and slow, its spiral arms sweeping through time. And in one of those arms, around that small golden star, a planet begins to take shape. It spins gently, wrapped in oceans and air, kissed by sunlight, and watched over by the same gravity that keeps the Milky Way in motion. Here within this vast symphony, the universe whispers a new verse, one of water, stone, and life. The galaxy hums above, and the earth, small and blue, begins to answer in its own rhythm. In the quiet arms of the Milky Way, around a modest golden star, dust and light began to gather. What was once scattered across space, fragments of ancient stars, ashes of forgotten suns, slowly came together, pulled by gravity's tender hands. The debris of countless lifetimes found itself drawn into a single rhythm, circling, swirling, folding inward like a slow and graceful dance. And from that dance, a planet was born. It did not appear all at once. It began as a cloud, rough, heavy, chaotic, spinning around its young star in silence. The particles clung to each other, colliding, merging, breaking and forming again. Each impact released heat. Each collision forged a bond until over time a small sphere began to take shape. It glowed red and fierce, at first a molten heart wrapped in fire and stone. But even as it burned, it began to move to turn. That turn was its first breath. Slowly, rhythmically, the young planet began to spin, not because it was told to, but because movement was written into the very fabric of the universe. Its rotation was a whisper of the galaxies. It came from a memory of the stars that had once spun before it. Every planet, every moon, every sun in the cosmos carried this same instinct to turn, to move, to dance through space. As it spun, the planet cooled. Its fiery skin began to harden. Its surface cracked, its molten rivers calmed. The air thickened with steam, with dust, with the breath of new beginnings. And when the heat finally softened, the first drops of rain fell not gentle, but endless. For centuries it rained, and the surface sizzled, hissed, sighed, until at last the water stayed. The first oceans gathered shimmering beneath the pale light of a newborn sun. This was Earth, though it did not yet have a name. It was only a world learning how to exist, how to turn in its orbit, how to balance between light and dark. With each rotation, it discovered time, day, and night, sunrise, and dusk. One side bathed in golden warmth, the other cooled in deep shadow. The planet had found its heartbeat. Every spin was a pulse, a slow, steady rhythm that would never stop. It was not perfect, not constant. It wobbled slightly, tilted gently, as though unsure of itself. But that imperfection gave it seasons, gave it rhythm, gave it change. And in that change, life would one day find its chance. The Earth's rotation became its soul, a motion, both delicate and eternal. Around it, the moon began to form, born from a collision that nearly tore the young planet apart. Yet even that chaos found its place in the grand harmony of the universe. The moon's presence steadied the Earth, slowed its spin, and together they began their eternal dance. Partners locked in balance, circling each other under the watchful gaze of the sun. The Earth turned again and again, wrapped in clouds and wind. Volcanoes roared, mountains rose, lightning cracked through its heavy skies. But amid the noise of its creation, there was a deeper silence, the silence of potential. Beneath its oceans hidden from light, the first whispers of life began to stir. Tiny, invisible, fragile, they emerged in the warmth of volcanic vents, in pools of minerals, in drops of ancient rain. They were not yet creatures, only patterns, only rhythms, echoes of the same cycles that had shaped the stars. But even in their stillness, they moved, they multiplied, they began to breathe. The planet in its turning cradled these first forms of life as gently as it cradled its seas. It gave them warmth in the day and rest in the night. It gave them gravity, air, and water, all the pieces of the universe, reassembled in a single living song. And through it all, Earth kept spinning, unaware that it had just become something extraordinary, a home. If you could have stood there in those early days, you would have seen a world of endless storms and glowing skies. Lightning danced across boiling oceans, comets streaked through the heavy clouds, and yet deep below, in darkness and stillness, life was already humming. It was not loud, it was not grand, but it was there, a soft vibration at the core of existence, a beginning so quiet that even the stars might have missed it. Every rotation carried the planet forward, each turn a heartbeat in the slow rhythm of creation. From molten stone to blue water, from chaos to calm, from silence to breath, the Earth was learning to live. And while the galaxy continued its vast silent spinning, our small world turned faithfully within. It warmed by its star, pulled by its moon, alive with invisible motion. Every sunrise became a promise, every sunset a sigh. The Earth had joined the cosmic dance, finding its own rhythm within the grand symphony of the universe. Billions of years would pass before eyes opened to see its beauty, before hands reached to touch its soil, before voices whispered gratitude into its winds. But even now, before any of that, the planet was enough perfect in its motion, sacred in its silence, because the Earth's first lesson was not how to move, but how to keep moving, to turn gently, endlessly, without need for reason or reward, to spin through darkness and light, knowing that both are part of the same song. And then, one day, light would return, not just from the sun above, but from within. It would glimmer through water, reflect off air, awaken the sleeping world in color and warmth. The touch of sunlight would change everything it touched. There came a morning unlike any before, The storms had softened, the oceans had cooled, and the clouds began to thin. Through the mist of a young sky, the first rays of sunlight broke free, golden, soft, trembling as they reached down to touch the waiting earth. It was the planet's first dawn. For the first time, warmth spilled across the surface. It slid gently over the waves, shimmered on the edges of rocks, and wrapped itself around the planet like a tender embrace. The sunlight was not just light, it was comfort. It was breath. The earth, once cold and wild, began to glow beneath it like a child waking from a long, dreamless sleep. The sun did not rise in silence. As its light reached the seas, the water began to move, pulled by its warmth. Currents formed soft and circular, carrying life's promise through the deep. The air stirred too, whispering winds, learning their first song as they traced patterns over the glowing oceans. It was as though the world had learned how to exhale. From this meeting of light and motion, balance was born. The sun gave warmth, the night offered rest. The earth learned to turn between the 2 day into night, into day, an endless rhythm of giving and receiving. This dance between brightness and shadow became the heartbeat of the planet, the first true cycle of time. With every sunrise, the earth opened its eyes again. With every sunset, it closed them only to dream of the light's return. The two, light and darkness, were not enemies, but partners, weaving the delicate fabric of time and growth. The planet's spin was no longer just movement, it was meaning. As sunlight continued to touch the oceans, something within the water began to stir. The heat awakened tiny patterns, chemical dances that had slept for eons. They gathered divided, changed shapes that could not yet be called life, but were reaching toward it. The light became not just warmth, but nourishment, a whisper that said, "Wake up," and the earth listened. The winds carried that message across continents, still being born, over mountains, rising from the sea, through the thin blue veil of a new atmosphere. The planet trembled under the weight of possibility. It was still wild, still raw, but now it was awake. Every beam of sunlight that touched the ocean was a thread of life being woven. The surface shimmered as waves danced in rhythm with the breeze. The water glittered like glass, reflecting the golden sky, a mirror for the cosmos itself. Even the air seemed to hum alive with the warmth of its star. If you could stand there in that first morning light, you would see a world both strange and familiar. No trees, no flowers, no voices, only stone, sea, and sky. Yet there was beauty in its simplicity, a kind of purity that comes only before the first heartbeat. The earth was still learning how to exist, but the sun had already fallen in love with it. As the light reached deeper into the water, it met the building blocks of life hidden there. Tiny molecules caught its warmth and began to move in new ways. They formed bonds, broke apart, and joined again over and over, until one day, the impossible happened. From the quiet chemistry of sunlight and sea life took its first breath. It was not loud, it was not grand, it was simply the smallest shimmer in the vast ocean invisible to the naked eye. But it changed everything. The planet, once just rock and water, now carried something entirely new, something that could grow. From that moment, light became sacred. It was no longer just an external force, but a memory written into the fabric of every living thing that would ever exist. Every leaf that would unfold every creature that would open its eyes. Every heart that would beat, all of them would carry a piece of that first morning within them. The warmth of sunlight became the language of life. It taught the seas to move, the air to breathe, and the future to unfold. The planet began to glow, not only from above, but from within, as life, fragile and uncertain, began to shimmer beneath its surface. The earth was no longer just a body of stone. It had begun to feel. Every rotation brought new light, new warmth, new hope. The sun rose, not just to shine, but to nurture. Each day was a conversation, a promise between the star and its planet. And so, in the soft golden light of those early mornings, the first dreams of life began. They swayed in the water, danced in the air, whispered in silence. The world had found its rhythm, and in that rhythm it found its purpose. The balance between light and dark, warmth and cold, rest and motion, all of it worked together to create something miraculous. Life did not burst forth. It unfurled slowly, delicately, like a petal opening to the sun. The first rays of sunlight that had once touched only stone were now reflected in ripples of water, alive with movement. The world was changing again, and this time the change would never stop, because when the sun touched the earth, it did more than give light. It gave memory, and every form of life that would ever exist would remember that warmth, that first awakening, as the beginning of everything. And beneath those shimmering waters, the light continued to work its quiet magic. The tiny sparks of existence began to multiply, to weave together, to take on form. What had been chemistry became motion, and what had been motion began to feel like life. It was here in the soft, golden cradle of the seas that the earth took its next step. Beneath the soft glow of a young sun, the oceans of earth shimmered like liquid mirrors. They held within them the memory of stars' dust and light energy and time, all folded together by gravity's patient hand. For ages, these waters had been silent, restless, waiting, but now something inside them began to move with purpose, something small, something alive. In the depths where warmth met darkness, the first sparks of life awakened. They were not creatures, not yet only fragile patterns of molecules, learning to hold together, to copy themselves, to survive one more heartbeat longer than before. The ocean cradled them, rocked them gently, and in that tender stillness, the universe took its first breath through another. The first cells were simple, but in their simplicity, there was something divine. Tiny pockets of life, holding within them the same elements that once burned in the hearts of dying stars. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, all the familiar voices of the cosmos gathered again, not to explode this time, but to live. Every cell was a reflection, a small, quiet mirror of the universe itself. Each carried the rhythm of rotation, the pulse of energy, the shimmer of light that had traveled across galaxies. They were born of chaos, but they carried order. Born of heat, yet sustained by balance. Within them, the story of creation continued, not in fire, but in breath. As these microscopic beings drifted through the sea, they absorbed the sun's light and the earth's warmth, weaving energy into themselves. In that exchange, the universe began to do something it had never done before. It started to see itself. Through the quiet awareness of living matter, the cosmos found a way to witness its own beauty. Life in its earliest form was the universe's dream, made visible. It was curiosity taking shape, wonder becoming movement. The same particles that once floated in the void were now forming eyes senses awareness. Slowly, the universe was learning what it meant to feel. You could imagine it, the deep ocean glowing faintly with the pulse of new life. Tiny cells drifting like stars through the water, dividing and multiplying, each one carrying the light of creation within. It was a slow symphony, played not with instruments, but with time itself. Each replication, each transformation, a note in the song of existence. The earth still young listened. Its winds softened, its seas grew calmer. The warmth of the sun lingered on the surface, and the light that had once only illuminated the world now became part of it. Life did not just exist on earth, it became of the earth. Every living thing, no matter how small, carried the echo of the stars. The calcium in shells, the iron that would one day flow in blood, the oxygen that filled oceans with breath, all were gifts from long-dead suns. The stars had burned, collapsed and scattered, only to rise again, in another form. We were the continuation of their fire. As time stretched on these tiny beings, learned to work together, they merged, shared, evolved. From single sparks came colonies. From colonies, complexity. They began to build, not with stone or fire, but with structure, with purpose. Within each one, the pulse of life beat stronger, clearer. And somewhere in that endless repetition, a miracle occurred. The living world began to change its world in return. These ancient cells exhaled oxygen, filling the oceans, then the skies with air. They painted the Earth's atmosphere blue, turning a once hostile planet into a cradle of warmth and light. Life was no longer just surviving, it was transforming its home. It's strange to think that from such small, invisible beginnings, everything that would ever walk, swim, or fly was already written. The pattern of trees, the rhythm of hearts, the movement of thought, all of it existed first as a whisper in the ocean's depths. The universe, in its infinite stillness, had found a way to dream. Every living thing was a fragment of that dream, tiny pieces of the cosmos, remembering what it meant to create. In every heartbeat, in every breath, the universe was saying to itself, I am here. I am alive. Life was not an accident. It was an expression. The universe had no eyes, so it made them. It had no voice, so it made us. Through life, it could feel its own warmth, taste its own light, wonder at its own existence. We were not separate from it. We were its continuation, its heartbeat made flesh. If you listen closely, you can still hear that heartbeat today, in the rustle of leaves, in the waves against the shore, in your own quiet breath. Every inhale, every exhale is the same rhythm that began billions of years ago, when the first cell learned to live. The ocean sighed with life, and above it, the skies deepened into blue. Clouds drifted, rain fell, light shimmered on the waves. The world was no longer silent. It whispered through wind, through water, through the soft stirring of life, beginning to bloom. And so the earth turned again, another day, another cycle. The planet was alive now, not only in movement, but in essence. It had learned to breathe, and soon the breath of life would spread beyond the sea, reaching the air, the land, the skies. From the deep waters where it all began, life was preparing to climb upward, to stretch its arms toward the sun, to fill the world with motion and color. The earth had learned to breathe. Its oceans shimmered beneath the sun. its skies thickened with air, and its heart deep within layers of stone, beat with quiet rhythm. Life stirred beneath the surface and swam in the sea, but above it all, something else began to awaken. The invisible ocean of the sky began to move. It started softly, a whisper across the waves, a sigh through the mountains. Warm air rose, cool air sank, and in between the first winds began to wander. They were not wild at first, only curious. They traced the curves of the planet, brushed over the seas, and circled back again, carrying stories of where they had been. The Earth's atmosphere, once heavy and still, began to sing. Each current of air was a note, each gust a breath in the planet's endless symphony. The Earth was no longer silent stone and water. It had found its voice, and it spoke through wind, through rain, through the delicate shifting of clouds. Every spin of the Earth added rhythm to this music. As the planet turned, sunlight reached different places, in turn, warming some, cooling others. From this dance of light and shadow came the first seasons. The world began to tilt, to sway, to change. And in each change, there was harmony. Spring breathed life, summer sang of warmth, autumn whispered farewell, and winter rested in silence. The planet's rotation was no longer just movement, it was emotion. When the wind touched the water, the seas answered back. Waves rose and fell in gentle cadence, shaped by invisible hands. Rain formed in the clouds and fell to the earth, each drop a memory returning home. Rivers began their long journeys across the land, carving valleys, feeding life, whispering to the soil. The sky and the earth had become lovers endlessly, exchanging breath. Each gust of wind carried something ancient, the scent of salt, the coolness of mountains, the warmth of distant sands. The air became the messenger of the world, connecting ocean to forest, forest to desert, desert to sky. It was as if the earth itself was writing letters to every corner of its body, telling stories only the wind could deliver. And through those stories, the planet remembered itself. The wind became its memory, the rain its recollection. Every storm that crossed the sea was a retelling of its creation. Every calm day, a pause between sentences. The planet had begun to speak in weather. If you could listen, truly listen, you would hear the language hidden in the breeze, the soft murmur of the morning wind through the trees. That is the earth remembering the first forests that will one day grow. The heavy sigh of thunder, that is the echo of volcanoes that once shaped continents. The gentle rain that falls upon still water, that is the world remembering its own birth in the ocean. The earth had become a storyteller, and the wind was its voice. Every current was shaped by the planet's breath, by its spin, by its warmth. The sky was no longer empty. It was alive with movement, with stories that began and ended in the same eternal cycle. Through these cycles, the earth began to heal and evolve. The winds carried seeds that would one day become forests. The rain fed the rivers that would one day carve homes for life on land. The storms sculpted the surface, tearing and shaping, destroying and creating. There was no malice in this, only balance. The earth, like everything in the universe, was learning that creation and destruction were two verses of the same song. And just as life had once stirred in the oceans, it began now to look toward the surface. The winds carried not only stories, but whispers of opportunity, oxygen, warmth, sunlight. The air that once swirled aimlessly was now rich with breath. The the sea and the sky worked together, preparing the stage for what was coming next. For in the rhythm of these winds, something extraordinary was waiting to emerge. The planet had its breath, its pulse, its memory, but soon it would have eyes, eyes that would look up at the sky and see for the first time the beauty of the world that had made them. The earth spun on steady and slow. Its atmosphere shimmered, its oceans sang its winds, told endless stories to anyone who could listen. And in the quiet spaces, between the storms in the calm, between seasons, a new kind of awareness began to stir, not in the sky, but in the living world below. The planet was preparing for consciousness, for curiosity, for beings that would one day rise and wonder at the same winds that shaped them. The air that once moved through mountains and seas would soon move through lungs. The breath of the earth would become the breath of its children, and as those children grew, they would lift their heads toward the stars and listen. The winds that had carried the memory of the earth would carry something new, a question, a longing. The earth had found its rhythm, its oceans, breathing its winds, whispering its forests, dreaming in green. Life had filled every corner of the planet, from the depths of the sea to the peaks of stone. And then, after ages of quiet evolution, something new emerged, something that could not only live, but wonder. From the dust of the ground and the breath of the air, humankind arose. We were small, fragile, and uncertain, yet inside our chests burned a spark no other creature carried the longing to understand. We did not just see the world, we noticed it. The rustle of leaves, the pull of the tides, the rise and fall of the sun, all of it stirred a question in our hearts that no language yet could name. And so for the first time, eyes turned upward. The night sky spread above us, vast and silent, filled with lights too distant to touch, yet too beautiful to ignore. We did not know their names, their sizes, or their ages, but we felt them. Each star seemed alive, pulsing faintly, whispering in a language we almost understood. The heavens became a mirror, for our curiosity a canvas, where imagination met memory. Every tribe, every wanderer, every child who looked up at the night saw something different. Gods, fires, ancestors, destinations. But beneath all those stories was one truth we were searching for home. Somewhere inside us, we remembered that we came from that same stardust. The stars did not just light the sky, they illuminated our origin. The first people did not have science or telescopes, only wonder. Yet in their wonder, they touched something sacred. They built fires to mimic the stars, traced patterns across the night, and told stories that kept the sky alive in their hearts. They believed the stars were alive, because in a way they were. Each one carried a memory of creation, the same light that once sparked life in the oceans, now burned far above, calling softly to what it had made. The sky became a companion, a teacher that asked questions without speaking. When the sun rose, it taught us warmth and time. When it set, it taught us patience and faith. When the moon appeared, it showed us reflection, how even darkness could shine. The stars reminded us of distance, that not everything can be reached, but everything can be admired. Each night, humanity returned to that mirror of light. We began to notice patterns, constellations, movements, seasons. The rhythm of the heavens matched the rhythm of the earth. From that harmony, we learned how to plant, how to travel, how to measure time. Stars became our first compass, our first calendar, our first religion. But more than that, they became our first memory. We saw ourselves in them, fragile, luminous, brief. We felt their pull, not only through gravity, but through longing. To look at the stars was to remember what we were made of. The atoms in our bones had once burned in their hearts. Their light reaching us after billions of years was a message from our own beginnings. You have always been part of this. And yet, as we grew wiser, our questions grew louder. What are they made of? How far do they go? Are we alone beneath their gaze? Curiosity became the bridge between earth and sky. We built myths to explain what we did not yet understand, and from those myths came dreams, dreams of flight of knowledge, a reunion with the stars. The act of looking up became more than an instinct. It became a ritual, a quiet prayer whispered across generations. Every civilization, in its own way, worshipped the sky, not out of fear, but out of recognition. We knew, even if we could not say why, that the light above was part of us. We are the only creatures who remember to look back, not just at where we stand, but at where we come from. Our eyes, shaped by the earth, are also shaped by the stars they reflect. The night sky became a story of our own, becoming vast, unfinished, but alive with promise. Even now in cities filled with noise and light, when we find a moment of stillness and see a single star, something ancient stirs within us. A memory, a soft voice that whispers, "You are home." For in every one of us, the cosmos still burns quietly. The calcium in our teeth, the iron in our blood, the gold on our fingers, all of it was once forged in stars that lived, died, and were reborn. When we gaze into the night, we are not looking outward, but inward into the reflection of our own existence. And the stars, patient, as always, continue to shine back. They do not answer our questions. They invite us to keep asking. The universe, through them, keeps us awake, keeps us wondering, keeps us dreaming. From that dream would come a new kind of fire, the fire of knowledge. We would learn to measure the sky, to map it, to send our voices beyond it. But before we could reach for the stars, we had to understand the one beneath our feet, our planet, our home, our origin. Because the more we looked upward, the more we began to see downward, the earth itself, glowing under the same starlight, alive, breathing fragile. And we realized something profound, that to understand the heavens, we must first understand the world that made us capable of wonder. The journey of humanity would soon leave the ground. The dream that began with a glance at the stars would carry us far beyond our own skies. But even as we reach outward, a quiet truth would remain that our eyes, our thoughts, our longing, all began here, in this simple act of looking up. As human eyes grew wiser, they began to see not just the stars, but what the stars were telling. For centuries, we had looked at the night sky and seen beauty, mystery, and comfort. But now, we began to understand what those distant lights truly were. They were not just points shining in the dark. They were messages from the past. Each beam of starlight that reached our eyes had traveled for millions, sometimes billions of years. The glow we saw tonight might have left its star long before there were oceans, forests, or even Earth itself. Some of those stars had already died, gone silent, collapsed into dust. Yet their light continued to move through space, steady and faithful, carrying the memory of what once was. Light, we learned, was time made visible. When we looked at the stars, we were not seeing the present, We were peering through the corridors of history. Every shimmer in the night sky was a frozen moment, a story caught mid-breath. The universe, vast and ancient, had left its memories scattered across space, and light was the thread that bound them together. To gaze upward was to travel backward. A star, 100 light years away, showed us the world as it was a century ago. A galaxy, 1 million light years distant, revealed an image from before humanity ever existed. And when we looked even farther past the faintest whispers of light, we could almost see the dawn of everything, the faint, glowing echo of creation itself. It was humbling and it was beautiful, because for the first time, we understood that we were not outside of time, but inside it, that we too were part of this endless flow of memory and light. The universe was not a stage upon which life had appeared. It was a living memory, constantly unfolding, constantly remembering itself through the light that never stopped moving. And somewhere deep within that realization came a quiet ache, the awareness that everything we love, everything we see is both now and long ago. The sunlight warming your face left the sun 8 minutes before it touched your skin. The light of the nearest star has been on its journey for 4 years. Even the glow of our galaxy's heart began its voyage tens of thousands of years before it reached us. Every glance upward is a reunion with something that once was. Light became our teacher, soft but unrelenting. It showed us that nothing ever truly vanishes. Every spark leaves a mark. Every flame, no matter how brief, sends a part of itself outward into eternity. The stars taught us that memory is not bound to flesh or mind. It is woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. Scientists gave this understanding names and numbers, but behind those measurements was something more intimate, the human realization that the universe was keeping our stories too. Just as starlight carries the memory of the past, our existence carries the memory of the stars. We began to build instruments, telescopes that could see farther, clearer, deeper. With each new lens, we peeled back another layer of time. We watched galaxies collide, stars being born, and nebulae breathing in slow, glowing rhythm. Through light, we could touch events that had happened long before the earth itself was dust. We were no longer just observers. We were witnesses to time. But the deeper we looked, the quieter it became. Beyond the clusters of galaxies, beyond the farthest light, there was a faint, almost invisible glow, the oldest of all, the cosmic background, the remnant of the first fire, the echo of the Big Bang. When we found it, we realized that we were seeing not just the beginning of stars, but the beginning of memory itself. The light had been traveling for nearly 14 billion years, crossing a universe that had grown and stretched with every passing second. When it finally touched our eyes, it was like hearing the faint heartbeat of the cosmos, ancient, fragile, eternal. We understood then that to study the universe was to study our own past, the carbon that built our bones, the iron that flowed in our blood, the light that reflected from our eyes. All of it came from the stars we now looked upon. The universe was not a stranger. It was our oldest ancestor. Every time we look at the sky, we are looking at ourselves, at who we were and who we might become. The stars are not distant. They are the memories of the atoms that once dreamed of becoming us. And perhaps That is why we keep looking up night after night, because we are searching for our reflection in every beam of light that crosses the darkness. We sense a part of our own history reaching back to greet us. Even in death, the stars do not disappear. They transform. They give, they scatter their ashes across space so that new worlds, new suns, and new lives can begin. Their endings are beginnings written in light. So when you look at the night sky, remember you are seeing the universe remembering itself. You are watching the past live again. You are standing in the present, built from the light of what once was. And somewhere in a future, not yet written, the light leaving you now may one day reach another, being another world, and tell them the story of who we were. Light connects everything: stars, planets, time, and thought. It travels endlessly, carrying the song of creation from one age to another, from one heart to another. And as humanity began to understand this, another realization quietly dawned: that if light can travel across eternity, then perhaps memory can too. Perhaps what we do, what we make, what we love, also ripples outward long after we are gone. The stars, after all, did not only give us light, they gave us the power to reflect it. And one day, in our own way, we would send that light back into space, into time, into the waiting dark. For so long, we believed that time moved in a straight line, a quiet arrow that flowed endlessly forward, never pausing, never turning back. It seemed so simple. The past behind us, the future ahead, and the present, a fragile moment between the two. But as we began to look deeper into the heart of the universe, the truth whispered something softer, stranger, more beautiful. Time, it seemed, was not a river. It was a sea, and it could bend. The stars had already shown us that light could travel across ages, that what we saw in the sky was not now but long ago. And yet, in that realization, another truth began to emerge: that light, space, and time were not separate things but threads woven into one fabric. Wherever matter existed, that fabric curved. Wherever gravity pulled time, itself would slow. The universe was not fixed. It was breathing. Time stretched near. Stars rippled around black holes and drifted differently in the quiet between galaxies. It moved with the grace of something alive, expanding, contracting, folding in on itself like a lung exhaling starlight. The universe was not a machine ticking forward. It was a living rhythm, its pulse measured, not in seconds, but in the turning of galaxies. We had always thought of before and after as separate places, but in the grand weave of space-time, they were only parts of one endless whole. The beginning of a star and its death, the birth of a planet and its decay, all were connected, not by distance, but by the gentle curvature of time. To the universe, there was no past or future, only presence. Everything that ever was, everything that will be, all existed together in one great, shifting tapestry. Time did not move through us. We moved through it like travelers, tracing paths through a dream. Even gravity, that invisible thread that bound all things, was simply the way time curved around matter. Heavy things bent time more deeply. Lighter things floated along its ripples. The closer we drew to something massive, the slower time would seem to flow. A second on a mountain's peak was not the same as a second at the sea. Time breathed differently everywhere. Perhaps that is why, when we look at the stars, we feel something eternal, because part of us senses the truth that time is not only passing, but circling, folding, returning, that every ending is just another beginning, seen from a different angle. In the heart of a black hole, where gravity becomes infinite, time ceases to flow at all. Everything stops, not because it ends, but because it becomes complete. Past and future merge into one, and all that remains is the quiet presence of being. To fall into that silence would not be to die, but to dissolve, to return to the stillness that existed before time began to move. And yet, even here, the universe keeps its breath. Around every massive body, time stretches and sighs like wind around a mountain. In the emptiness between galaxies, it moves freely, quick and light. The cosmos is a great symphony of rhythms, some fast, some slow, all playing together. To understand this is to see time not as a ruler, but as a song. Each of us lives within our own measure, our own verse. The stars have their tempo, the planets their cadence, and the atoms within us their own quiet beat. Together, we form the melody of existence, each note bending and swaying, shaping the harmony of the whole. And in this grand music, even the pauses matter. The moments when time seems to slow, when we breathe, when we remember when we love, those are not interruptions. They are part of the rhythm itself. The universe too has its rests, moments of stillness between explosions, between epochs, between breaths. Time itself knows how to wait. Perhaps that is the secret behind the great arcs of galaxies, the spirals of storms, the heartbeat of stars. They are not fixed, not trapped in an eternal race forward. They move, they turn, they pause. Even eternity knows how to breathe, and so do we. When we stand beneath the stars, watching the light of long-dead suns, we are standing in the curve of time itself, our bodies part of the same wave that bends around the cosmos. Every thought, every heartbeat, every breath we take bends time just a little, adds to the shape of existence. There is no real separation between our moments and the universe's. When we feel time slow, in wonder, in grief, in love, that is the cosmos bending around us, matching our pulse. Time does not move past us, it moves with us. Everything that has ever been still exists, somewhere folded within the fabric of time, waiting shimmering softly. Nothing is truly gone. It has only curved away just out of sight. And in that understanding lies peace. For if time bends, then so does loss. Every goodbye, every ending, every fading light is not gone. It is simply traveling along another path, waiting to meet us again when the curve of the universe brings it full circle. The stars continue to spin, galaxies turn like slow-moving wheels, and time flows through them like wind through tall grass. It moves, it sways, it hums a lullaby for everything that ever was. And as the universe breathes, so do we caught between moments that are not linear, but luminous. Time slows when we look at the stars, when we listen deeply, when we remember where we came from. It is in those pauses that we truly exist, not in the ticking forward, but in the gentle curved silence between. And perhaps, just beyond that silence, something new begins. Not an end, not a beginning, but a return. For as time bends, it brings everything back to where it started: the light, the stars, the galaxies, and even us. There will come a time far, far beyond the age of stars and galaxies, when the universe begins to slow its breath. The light that once filled every corner of space will start to fade. The stars, those bright notes in the cosmic song, will grow weary one by one. Their fires will dim their warmth, will soften, and the sky will fall quiet. It will not happen all at once. For ages Beyond imagination, stars will continue to burn, but their light will become fewer, their songs shorter. The brilliant blue suns will be the first to go their fuel, spent in bursts of radiance. The smaller ones, the patient red stars, will linger glowing dimly like embers in a dying fire. And when even they fade, darkness will return, wrapping the universe in a deep, soft quiet. The galaxies that once danced in spirals will slow their arms, unraveling into the void. The clusters that once shimmered like cities of light will drift apart, pulled away by the expansion that never stops. Space itself will stretch thinner and colder, and the warmth of creation will be a distant memory. No more new stars will be born. The clouds of gas that once gave life to suns will be gone, scattered and spent. The universe will enter an age of stillness where even light seems too tired to move. It will be a time without dawns, without shadows, only the faint, fading glow of what once was. Yet in that silence, something beautiful will remain. The universe, though dimmed, will not be empty. There will still be motion, the slow drift of dark matter, the gentle hum of background radiation, the quiet flicker of black holes consuming their final meals. These will be the last rhythms of existence, the final vibrations of the great cosmic heart. In those last breaths of time, black holes will reign. Massive and silent, they will pull in whatever remains. Stars, planets, dust, even light itself. And as they feed, they too will whisper their energy back into the void, until eventually, even they begin to fade. When the last black hole sighs its final particle into space, the universe will fall completely still. It will not be destruction, only rest. The cosmos will not end in violence but in peace. Its energy will spread thin across infinity, too quiet to glow, too gentle to stir. Temperature will fall toward absolute zero, and movement will nearly stop. Time will lose its meaning, for nothing will change anymore. The universe will not die, it will sleep. The silence will be vast, but not empty of memory. Every particle will still carry the trace of what once was, the echo of starlight, the breath of galaxies, the warmth of creation. The universe will remember itself, not in motion, but in stillness. Every atom will be a word from the first song, whispered softly into the dark. And perhaps, if silence could dream, the universe would dream of light, of that first moment when it began to expand, to sing, to shine. It would remember the laughter of photons, the glow of newborn stars, the rise of life that once looked up and wondered. Even in its rest, the cosmos would still hold the memory of wonder. We might imagine that this ending feels lonely, but in truth it is peaceful, like the hush that follows a symphony's final note. The energy of the universe is not gone. It has simply found balance. It no longer rushes outward, no longer burns. It simply is. And in that stillness, time will stretch into infinity. There will be no more seasons, no more orbits, no more rising suns, only the long exhale of eternity. The universe, after billions upon billions of years of movement, will finally surrender to quiet. But even then, perhaps deep within that silence, something will stir. A vibration faint but persistent. A whisper in the fabric of space, not loud enough to awaken, but enough to remind existence that nothing ever truly disappears. Energy does not die. It changes, the same way that light once became matter, and matter once became life, perhaps. Rest will one day become birth again. In the deepest silence, the smallest ripple might one day grow into a new breath, a new expansion, a new dawn. The universe may one day open its eyes again, because even sleep has a rhythm, and even stillness has a pulse. The universe's rest is not the end of the story, but the pause before the next verse, the inhale before the next creation. And if that day comes, the silence will break once more. Light will return fragile and new, spreading across the dark like the first sigh after endless dreaming. The universe will awaken from its long slumber, carrying within it the memory of everything that ever was, every star, every thought, every whisper of time. Until then, it will rest, not in sorrow, but in peace. Every galaxy that once spun every planet, that once breathed every being, that once looked up, will be folded into that calm. The universe will sleep in the cradle of its own creation, wrapped in the softness of its memories. And somewhere in the quiet, beyond all quiet, the next breath is already waiting. When all things fade, when light surrenders its final shimmer, and time itself forgets to move, something quiet begins to stir again. It does not roar, it does not blaze. It comes softly, a tremor beneath the silence, a whisper through the endless dark. It is the next breath. The universe long asleep exhales what remains of its warmth, and for a moment all of existence holds still, perfectly still, as though pausing between heartbeats. Every atom, every particle, every echo of light rests in that pause, suspended in peace. There is no movement, no noise, no sorrow, only stillness, vast, complete, eternal. And then, gently, imperceptibly, the stillness begins to shift. A ripple moves through the quiet fabric of space, small as the first sigh of dawn. From that ripple, a new pulse rises, soft, slow, almost shy. It spreads like warmth, returning to frozen hands, like the memory of music finding its way back to silence. The universe is breathing again. What we once called the end was never an ending at all. It was a turning of fold in the infinite rhythm that binds everything together. Energy that had stretched thin begins to gather. Dust scattered across eternity hums faintly as it remembers how to come home, in the same way that stars were born from darkness before they begin to form again, hidden within the black. It is the same story told in a new language. Out of emptiness comes motion. Out of silence comes sound. Out of rest comes creation. The universe, like a wave, retreats, only to return each breath containing the memory of all those before it. Nothing is ever lost. Nothing truly ends. Every collapse is only the beginning of another expansion. Somewhere in the far reaches of this reborn cosmos, the faintest light flickers. It is not bright, not yet, but it carries the promise of dawn. One spark becomes two, two become many, until the void once again begins to glow. The darkness that once cradled the universe now holds its newborn light, tender and patient. And so, the cycle begins anew. Space stretches time, awakens, and the first particles dance to the rhythm of creation once more. What was once ash becomes air. What was once gone becomes possible again. The breath of the universe flows outward, not as repetition, but as renewal. Each new beginning carries within it the wisdom of every ending that came before. We are part of that cycle. We always have been. Every molecule in our bodies has lived countless lives, as starlight, as dust, as ocean and flame. The breath we take now once belonged to the first winds that swept across a young world. The light in our eyes began its journey before Earth had a name. We are not separate from the universe's rhythm. We are the rhythm continuing. The universe breathes through us, and when we breathe out, we give it back our warmth, our thoughts, our light. Even after our brief lives fade, what we were will drift onward, joining the eternal tide of energy and dust. There is no farewell in this. There is only exchange. Existence moves through us as it moves through stars, transforming but never ending. Perhaps that is the quiet truth hidden beneath all creation, that the universe has no final chapter. It only changes form endlessly gracefully with the patience of eternity. Every collapse gives rise to a new horizon. Every silence contains the echo of a future song. The end of everything, then, is not a tragedy, but a return. When the last light fades, it does not vanish. It simply joins the stillness from which all light is born. When the final breath escapes into the void, it does not die. It becomes the first breath of what comes next. There is peace in this cycle, a peace so deep it feels like love. The universe does not rush or fear. It simply continues inhaling and exhaling across endless ages. And within that rhythm, that slow, eternal heartbeat, lies the truth of everything that ever was. We are made of that breath. Every thought, every heartbeat, every small moment of wonder is part of the same great motion that began at the dawn of time. Even when we fall silent, we do not vanish. We return. We rest. We join the universe's quiet inhale, waiting for the next exhale that will bring us to life again in another form. So when you look up into the night sky, even if it is empty, know that you are seeing not nothing, but potential. The silence of space is not absence, but waiting. The darkness is not the end. It is the beginning preparing to be born. And as that first breath rises once more, soft, infinite, gentle, the universe opens its eyes again. Light returns. Space stretches. Time awakens. The song begins anew, carrying within it every note that ever was. There is no final moment, only the pause between heartbeats. There is no death, only transformation. There is no end, only the quiet promise of beginning again. The universe is breathing, and you, right now in this very moment, are part of that breath. The rhythm that moves the galaxies moves through you. The silence that fills the cosmos fills your chest. When you breathe in, you take in the memory of stars. When you breathe out, you give them life again. And somewhere beyond sight, beyond sound, the universe exhales, and everything begins once more. And so, the story closes not with a period, but with a breath. For in every grain of dust, every dream, every small soul that looks to the stars, the universe continues to tell its tale. A tale with no beginning, no ending, only a whisper that echoes forever through the night I never left. I am only sleeping.